My professional background's been in higher education administration, working with new college students and their parents. But after a period of time of taking care of my folks, I have decided to refocus my energies on nonprofits. I started participation in the Age Friendly initiative as part of my assignment through a job program I'm in for people who are over age 55, have a disability and other mitigating circumstances. And I had the opportunity to kind of work with some folks and just design what would be a good experience for me to supplement, to kind of complement what it is I'm interested in doing. And Marilyn at Center 50 Plus agreed to, said, you know, we might be able to use your skills on this project. Kind of excited, kind of leery, because it's taken me a while to adjust to the fact that I am in the population being studied. Because in my mind I'm still not necessarily there, but pretty excited because it's part of a national and international project to make the world a friendlier place for people who are over 50. And with the boomer population aging, that population is increasing dramatically, and we need to be ready for it. To me, it's a city of all ages. If it's good for someone who is over age 50 or for someone older, it also tends to be good for kids. Or if it's good for kids, it probably also is good for someone who's a little bit older, which means that chances are it's good for everybody in between. Well, they identified 8 of them. There's transportation, social participation, housing was one of them, communication and information, how people get their information, health and social inclusion, open spaces and public buildings was another of it. And there was another social participation domain, and we've, for the purposes of the study, we combined 2 of them because there was so much overlap in the projects that we did, the open forums that we did, that it just wasn't, it didn't make a whole lot of sense to duplicate all the resources and people's time and have people looking around and thinking, didn't we do this already? I think the value of the format was that we did some surveying, so we got some feedback from people, and we had experts in each of the domains who talked about how their agency or their area of influence works with that domain. So first of all, it helped to get everybody on the same page or the level set, so everybody was working together from the same framework. What was neat about it was that it served to reinforce probably what most people would have guessed ahead of time, but it was consistent with other studies, both within the city and nationwide, about the kinds of things that we found and the things that we need to be concerned about. I thought they were all fascinating. There were some that I thought would really take priority. I thought transportation and housing would be some of the major issues for folks. But the more and more I realized that the social component of it and the issue of social isolation really became a major thing. At about the same time we were doing that, I heard an announcement that Great Britain appointed a minister of isolation, or minister of loneliness, I guess it was. And I thought that was fascinating, that they had recognized that social isolation and loneliness in the senior population is a major concern. And there are some neat documentaries out there, short documentary films on YouTube even related to that are really educational, eye-opening, some saddening, but optimistic that we're looking ahead of time. We have the chance in Salem now. The baby boomer generation is retiring, and it's going to continue. The population is going to continue to age. And as it does, there are going to be increasing demands on a whole variety of things in the city of Salem. And we have the chance, through this project, of getting ahead of that. And not waiting till it's there and everybody is clamoring like, why weren't we ready for this? We can be ready for it. And it's not going to take a whole lot to do it too. There's just some minor things that if people put in their consciousness, that the concerns and say, okay, well, how will this affect people who are older, getting older? Is this open to them? Is it accessible to them? Is it relevant to them? Just a few simple questions, and we can respond to a lot of these things. Transportation is interesting. As a person living with a disability, I've had MS for 24 years. I'm grateful I can still drive. There may come a time where I can't, either because of age or because of disability. And the reality is that right now where I live is 3 blocks from the bus stop, which would be my probably preferred method of transportation. So I walk down a steep hill using my cane, I walk up a steep hill, I walk down another steep hill, and that's just in 3 short blocks. Safety will be a real concern for me in doing that, because I have sometimes balance issues on flat ground, let alone walking up and downhill. So that's a concern for me. And then the concern becomes the connections and the connections. Getting if I have to change buses, how long will it be between buses? Will there be a place to sit? Will the sidewalk be in good repair when I get there, so I'm not going to be tripping and falling all over the place? Will there even be a sidewalk when I get where I'm going? Those are all questions that I have to ask. I have to ask those questions, a lot of those questions now anyway when I drive someplace. How close will I be able to park? Will the sidewalks be accessible? How far will it be? How long will it take? All those kinds of things. So just things I need to be conscious of with that. I don't have any problem with asking a friend, can you give me a ride, or can I ride along with you to this? But I'm the kind of person too who doesn't want to have someone adjust their schedule just so that I can get a ride to an appointment. I'd like to be able to just know that I can do that through the city transportation, public transportation. I am aware that there are other alternatives for people that do have disabilities. If I have difficulty where I need to be lifted onto a vehicle, Cherry Lift I'm aware of exists. Since I don't have the imminent need for that, though, I haven't explored it. So, I find with a lot of these things, until we know that we're going to need something, we don't even know that we need to ask the question. I think the single biggest thing that I would like to see come out of this, and it'd be a significant thing, is if every time an organization or an agency plans something, that they did it with all ages in mind. Is this something that would be friendly and accessible and useful and interesting to a person who's 80? Would it be something that would be accessible, interesting, accessible to someone who's 8? I think a lot of times when we're planning an activity, we think, as we should, about the majority population, because we want to get a lot of attendance for our thing. But the reality is that we're missing populations that are significant to our community, and we're missing populations that that could provide a great benefit to our programs. It's nice for people who are getting older to do things, events and activities where there are younger people involved. We get a lot of energy from that. We learn a lot from that. They learn a lot from hanging around older folks too. So I think that if as we're planning something, we just stop and think. Everybody just stops and thinks, well, how will this affect someone who's getting a little bit older? Is this friendly to them, and is it something that we can, I don't say market to them, but we can tailor to them too. I think it's important that we're having this conversation, and I think it's important that Salem recognizes that our population is continuing to increase, and that we need to make, we may need to make some minor adjustments or accommodations to make sure that we're ready for that, and that we take advantage of that, because there's some vibrancy that goes along with attracting a senior population and having a senior population live here. I think that was fascinating, that you know, and a lot of the things that we talk about, we say, well, if we had the money to do this or had the money to do that. Well, the reality is, it doesn't take a whole lot of money. It takes a little bit of time for us to make sure the conversation includes how are we making sure that everyone is welcome and included in this. The one thing that I would add is that throughout this process, I was impressed with the fact, and I related this with transportation, that I haven't explored the ways that how I might get around, because it just hasn't been something to be concerned with. But at some point, the reality is I won't be able to drive. Well, at some point, the reality is too that we don't necessarily know when we're going to need a home modification. Whether someone falls, or whether it's just because my knees are wearing out, or for whatever reason, I need railings in the bathroom, in the shower when I get in, so that I can steady myself. Or the doorway may need to be a little bit wider because I'm in a wheelchair, or I have a walker and it's just not safe to get in and out. That a lot of people don't know to ask those questions. In a lot of cases, it's been a spouse or a family member that's taken care of those things for us, and we've never had to ask those questions before. Like, how am I going to get the snow shoveled, or how am I going to get the sidewalk clear, or the leaves raked, or the gutters cleaned, or whatever the case might be, because someone from the family is always taking care of that. And then all of a sudden we're thrown in a situation where that's not an option anymore. And so until we've been put in a position to have to think about those things, we don't know we're going to need to do that. Right now, I'm feeling a little bit naive in that there may be a time when I don't even know if I'm asking the right questions. I may not even know all the questions I should be asking to plan for down the road. So I'm hopeful to find a resource person who can say, have you been thinking about this? And I hope they're direct about doing that. For me, I think back to when I was a kid and we had a house with a big, huge front porch that wrapped around, that I'm able to sit out on my front porch and I know my neighbors, and I know my community, and they know me, and they know that if they don't see me out on my front porch and it's nice weather and it's 7:30 in the evening, maybe they better come over and check, because something might not be quite right. It didn't surprise me that people want to remain in their home, because I've known family over the years as they've aged that said, I really hope I never have to leave here. The connection to community surprised me. I thought the biggest concerns would be housing, transportation, and healthcare. I mean, that was just my thing going into it. Those are going to be the top ones. And the top one is a sense of connection, a sense of community. And that was fascinating. And so anything we can do as a city, and all the agencies, all the nonprofits, everybody working together, anything we can do to enhance that, I think is to our benefit. Even our level of participation in the community. I volunteer doing a lot of things right now. If I'm not able to drive myself, I'm less likely to spend as much time volunteering because of the amount of effort it'll take to get to where I'm volunteering. That'll just be more challenging. So even things as simple as that. I remember when my dad was early on with Alzheimer's disease, and for me to be concerned about one particular corner that he was going to have to do to drive to church. This is a retired minister who I'm saying, I'm going to start driving you to church. He knew how to get to church and back, but the one corner that he would have to negotiate that was heavy traffic and people came flying around, he wouldn't be able to see. In the time that it took for him to make the decision to turn the corner, somebody will have come around that corner already. And so that was a difficult conversation to have, but it was also one that he understood and appreciated.